talking about the colonial legacy and its impact on the African continent. I think one country that really stands out with regards to the impact of colonialism and what has become of us, and even speaking to our current socio-economic and political landscape, is Cameroon. You have spoken and written extensive on what has become known as the Anglophone crisis today. I just want you to give us a bedrock, just have the basis, give us the basis of, with an historical point of view, what was before and what is now.
Um, let's look at the historical perspective. You see, what happened was that Cameroon was colonized by Germany. They can use words like German protectorate and so on. Whom did the Germans protect? I mean, sometimes we have to throw away those imperial terms, which is like sugar coating. We were not protected by the Germans. It was a pure colony, treated harshly the way colonies are treated. For 30 years, Cameroon was under German rule. But they were able out of Cameroon, spelled as Kameru, by the British and French during the First World War. As I said earlier, imperialists struggle for Africa because Africa is a gold mine for them. So when they kick out the Germans, the British and the French now decide to divide German Cameroon as the spoils of war. They divided it between two unequal parts. The British took a slice of German Cameroon, which is to the west, and the French took a chunk of German Cameroon to the east. You must ask yourself, why had they to do that? This has not been explained by historians, and very few people in Cameroon even understand what was happening. What happened is that Cameroon was used like a chip in a diplomatic negotiation. It was just a piece of territory. The British and the French were engaged in the First World War as allies. So the French wanted that the British should give them territory in East Africa, give them territory in the Gulf, in the what we call the Horn of Africa, etc. As an ally in the war, very briefly realized that in the war, France did not do well at all. France was beaten very, very early in the war, but France remained an ally to the British. So how do you have to handle your ally? So after a lot of negotiation, it was now agreed that the Cameroon should be given to France, and no other territory should be given to France. Southern Africa, East Africa, zero, they refused. So they tried to compensate France, their ally, by giving France that chunk of Cameroon. Even in the war in Cameroon itself, the bulk of the war was fought by the British, not the French. So the French were just on the table to ask for, part of the spoils of war. And the British would have given the entire territory to the French, but for the fact that the enemies, the northern leaders in Nigeria and so on, want that northern part of Cameroon back because it was theirs. So after a lot of negotiations, the British now decided to at least satisfy their northern allies by giving them a part of it. That's what the British did. And then coming to the south, the British wanted to take a slice of territory to tidy the eastern part of Nigeria. In other words, they felt that there was some ethnic linkages and that imperialism was not fair to the Africans. So they wanted to correct it. So they said, okay, they'll take just a slice and try to repair the harm, and that is enough. So we realized already that there was a disproportionate division of German Cameroon between the British and the French. And this disproportionate division meant that there was a minority Cameroon and a majority Cameroon. And this minority Cameroon and majority Cameroon were subjected under two distinct administrative systems, under the French, and they existed for 40 years. So when unification of Francophone and Anglophone, it should be understood that it was a unification between a minority and a majority. Who created the minority? The Cameroonians came minority. The Cameroonians came majority. It was not created by the Cameroonians. It was created by the imperial order. So it cannot be, the problem cannot be attributed, the problem of whatever they call it, cannot be attributed to Cameroonians themselves. We must look at the colonial order. That's the first thing. So coming to the history, we realize that the French Cameroons, like the Republic of Cameroon, gained independence on the 1st of January 1960. It gained independence within the territories which were carved first by the League of Nations and second by the United Nations. So the French Cameroons gained independence with its inherited colonial boundaries, and it gained independence without the British Southern and Northern Cameroons. The British Southern and Northern Cameroons was administered by Britain as an extension of Nigeria, and the British throughout calculated and prepared the British Southern Cameroons to become part of Nigeria. So before unification with the French Cameroons or La République Cameroon, the British Cameroon, and let me be specific, the British Southern Cameroon was a state within the Nigerian Federation. It had its parliament, it had its government, it had its public service, it had its minister, it had everything. In fact, it was a state. And the constitution of the British Southern Cameroon was part of the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but it was a state within the Nigerian Federal Constitution. And the rights and obligations of the British Southern Cameroon was defined constitutionally. And it should be understood, particularly to our Francophone brethren, that the British Southern Cameroons had its own inherited colonial boundaries, which is demarcated, and they exist to this day. Their name. So the British Southern Cameroons entered the union with its boundaries and its own government. So what is the problem? The problem is that during the course of the negotiation, the British Southern Cameroons wanted to form a new nation with the French Cameroons, in which the French Cameroons will maintain its autonomy and the British Cameroons will maintain its autonomy.
Okay.
I think I want to end there if we can continue.